Man, things is really starting to take shape in the college football world as well as the NFL landscape. 8 weeks of college football action in the books, 7 weeks of NFL action wrapping up, and we are starting to get a clearer picture of some of the NFL teams that could be in the running for a top 10 pick and some of the collegiate stars that could be drafted early in the 2025 NFL draft. So what I decided to do today was take a look at a mock draft from one of my friends in the industry, Jordan Reid from ESPN, who dropped one a couple of days ago prior to Week 8 in college football. So we had all of the action from this past weekend's football action impacting some of these slots, some of these landing spots. We've got some big injuries that may force some teams to opt for some positions. So this is going to be a unique, fun type exercise where we take a look at a past mock, look at the current results, and try to predict where these teams and where these players might fit. We're going through all 32 teams in this one, 1 through 32, talking about it. Draft orders changed a little bit, but by and large, these are the teams that are going to be picking in these ranges, especially at the top. So as always, if you stick around to the end, find the information entertaining and or actionable, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. Help the channel grow. 2025 Mock Draft Mondays right here on DD Fantasy Football. Let's get it. Once again, appreciate y'all finding me here on the channel. If you want more content from me, you can get on X at RayGQue. But right here, we're going to pull up Jordan Reid's 2025 mock draft. He dropped this a couple of days ago. Like I said, prior to last weekend's college football action. So he had the Cleveland Browns at 1-5. We know they lost to the Cincinnati Bengals. They also lost Deshaun Watson. Had the Cleveland Browns selecting Shedeur Sanders at number 1 overall. So Watson is out for the season, and I have no idea if he will or will not play football again for the Browns or in the NFL, but it definitely seems like his time in Cleveland is up. And if that's the case, they're going to be probably looking for another quarterback. And I know there's a lot of dead money. We're not going to get into all of that, but a lot of money, like $70 million a season, that's going to be a dead cap hit. But what do you do? Deshaun Watson has probably played his last game as a Cleveland Brown. They owe him a lot of money, a lot of dead cap money. But you're looking at the college quarterback landscape right now, and you see the Browns going Shedeur. I do think he is the best quarterback in the country, the most equipped to come into an NFL team and execute NFL passing concepts. You see Shedeur Sanders be able to throw the ball all over the field, middle of the field, deep, intermediate, and short quadrants of the field. He's done a really good job with protection this year, even though his offensive line isn't great. He's getting the ball out quick, not taking a ton of sacks, and he's mobile enough to avoid defenders in the pocket. Say what you want about his character and all of this stuff. I'm not buying any of that. He's a very talented quarterback amongst a group of quarterbacks in the NFL today where it doesn't seem like a lot of guys are even confident to throw it over the middle of the field. Sanders can do it. He's going to be one of the top QBs in the draft class. And the bigger question is, a lot of people are going to talk about, is Deion Sanders going to allow Shedeur to play in Cleveland? He would fit what Stefanski wants to do. They've got to surround him with more weapons, but I do think Shedeur is the top quarterback. So Cleveland taking him at 1, even after the weekend of action, no issues with that. And with Watson being hurt, seems like this should be a priority for the Cleveland Browns. At number 2, he's got Travis Hunter, teammate of Shedeur, going to the New England Patriots, who also lost to the Jaguars overseas. So the Pats are right here picking top 3. They do have their quarterback of the future in Drake Maye, so they make this play for Travis Hunter. I believe he's going to play wide receiver at the next level. We'll see. Gerard Mayo said that they've got a bunch of soft players on the team. That does not bode well for, when you've got a former linebacker as your coach and you're calling out your team saying that they're soft. And Hunter probably could do it both ways at the next level, but you're already seeing him banged up, little injured coming into this matchup this past weekend. I believe he tweaked an ankle as well. I just don't know if you want him doing that consistently on both sides. So as a receiver, can you make the argument for Hunter being the top wide receiver off the board? I think with his ball skills, you can. Travis Hunter coming off the board, number 2 to New England. Interesting spot for a very interesting player. The Carolina Panthers, I'll just say this briefly, following their throttling, of getting throttled by the Commanders, they now have a historically bad defense, the worst defense historically through 7 games in NFL history. no pressure. Derek Brown going down. Jadeveon Clowney is hurt, and them trading Brian Burns. They probably need a quarterback, but we'll talk about that here in a second. Is there really a guy or two or three you feel confident with taking number 3 overall after what just happened with Bryce Young? Abdul Carter, edge rusher out of Penn State, didn't play this past week. Penn State was on a bye. He's explosive, and Penn State produces those athletes. So Carolina and their historically bad defense, with a historically bad number 1 overall pick in Bryce Young, they stay historically bad probably in 2025. Now, in this mock, the Raiders are jumping up over the Jags. The Jags won, and the Raiders lost, so this probably should be where it's at without any sort of trades. But for the sake of this joint, the Raiders jump up, and they take Cam Ward, number 4 overall, my current QB2 in the class. Cam Ward has delivered this season for the Miami Hurricane, and this past weekend, 319, 4 touchdowns. Louisville and Tyler Shaw were going at him, play for play, blow for blow. But Cam Ward, there's just that it factor. And finally, now that he's on a team with competent weapons, really good coaching, you're seeing what he's doing, elevating this Miami Hurricane team to their best record, I believe, since the 2016-2017 season or 2000. It's been a long time since they're doing what they are, coming 7-0 right now. Cam Ward is projecting to be a top pick. I do believe he'll be a first-round pick at the quarterback position. He can deliver the ball. And if you can sling it, if you can throw, if you're accurate, give me that any day. I love me Anthony Richardson and his potential, but if you're telling me I can get a guy that can just stand from the pocket and deliver, give me that dude. Cam Ward can do that, and he can move just enough in the pocket. Titans, James Pierce, the edge rusher out of Tennessee, going into the game against Alabama. I believe he was 2nd or 4th in the nation in pressure rate. Leaving that game against Alabama, he's number 1 in the country in pressure rate. He's big, he's physical, he's fast. Even though he does not have 10, 15 sacks, the way that he's affecting the game, James Pierce, legitimate dog. Going to be a top 10 pick next year. Very good player. Will Johnson, the cornerback out of Michigan, he's huge. 6'2", 202 pounds. Hadn't played in the past couple of weeks. He's dealing with an injury, but still projected to go high. The Rams, with that win, they're also in an interesting spot because they redirected some of Stafford's money to where it's essentially they can be done with him after this season. McVay, knowing this team has underperformed this year due to the fact that they haven't had any of their weapons on offense and a completely revamped defense, could this be a spot for a quarterback? I'm not sure. Cam Ward and Shedeur off the board. There's nobody to talk about at this point. Jags continue to protect and build around Trevor Lawrence by taking Will Campbell, and the word is not just Will Campbell, but both of the tackles from LSU have been playing out of their mind, apparently. They've got 2 stud tackles, have not started diving into all the D-lines and the tackles. I ain't going to BS you like that. That's why we rely on Jordan Reid. But Trevor Lawrence, love him or hate him, he is the franchise quarterback, so if you're getting this caliber of tackle and what I've heard to be a down class at the position, there's a couple of guys that you want, and after that, stay away. Grabbing Will Campbell here for your quarterback, knowing that you hit on wide receiver BTJ last year. You locked up Tyson Campbell in the secondary. You've got a good running back that you're not paying any money to in Tank Bigsby. Makes sense for Jacksonville to go O-line. Cincinnati Bengals looking to upgrade their interior defensive line. Mason Graham has been playing out of his freaking mind at interior D tackle this year. Let's just pull it up. Right now, following this past game versus Illinois, another 6 tackles in that matchup, 1 solo, 5 assisted tackles. He's got 3.5 sacks on the season, 6'3", 320 pounds. Big fan of Mason Graham's game, and this is something that the Cincinnati Bengals struggle with. So makes a lot of sense. Good fit for Cincinnati with Mason Graham. Nick Scoutron, the edge rusher out of A&M. I don't know a lot about his game. I do know that the Jets are hurting up front. Jermaine Johnson, done. They've got Will McDonald and Quinn Williams, who are incredible. But this transfer from Purdue, apparently 20 pressures, 8th in the country, and that was going in to last weekend. So somebody we need to do some research on. But the Jets, if they're picking top 10, if things don't work out well with Aaron Rodgers and company, I wonder what Jets Nation will want to do with their offensive quarterback. The Giants at number 10, Carson Beck. Okay. Love my dog, Jordan Reid, but I hope we don't see it. Listen, he's got more insider information than I ever will, but I'm watching the game, and Carson Beck, there's no way. There's no way he belongs in the first round, let alone the top 10. If I'm the Giants at number 10, there's no way I am selecting Carson Beck. Saw 3 interceptions versus Texas. This was after a pedestrian, heroic effort at a comeback the week before that. I'm just not this quarterback. Not this quarterback. You put Carson Beck behind some of those Shedeur Sanders offensive fronts at Colorado, even with Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn, he's not doing what Shedeur Sanders did. I'm watching Beck crumble under pressure. This is the guy who most people projected to be the top quarterback. No. Not number 10 overall, not to the Giants. No Carson Beck in round 1, not top 10 to the Giants. Kelvin Banks, offensive guard tackle out of Texas. You saw the Texas offensive front be under duress early in that game versus Georgia. We'll talk about 2 of those Georgia defenders here later in this mock. Dolphins got to protect Tua. There's no quarterback coming to save them. They've got to protect Tua. They've got injuries on their defensive front. Jalen Phillips being out for the season is a big loss, and they need help in the secondary. So we'll see, but Miami protecting Tua, there you go. Hopefully it's good for the run game and for Tua. New Orleans Saints, as bad as people talked about Derek Carr, one whiff of a real Spencer Rattler game, and you're praying Derek Carr gets back into action. Problem is there aren't a lot of pass catchers. Rashid Shaheed is a fun player, but you can't rely on him. Chris Olave is a really good wide receiver, but pairing him up with a 6'4" pterodactyl and Tedoror McMillan, probably good for the Saints. Who's going to be calling plays? Who is Dennis Allen going to survive to make this pick? Do you get a creative offensive mind in here to New Orleans? But pairing up Ted McMillan with Chris Olave makes a lot of sense. So I'm sure the Saints have a lot of other needs outside of wide receiver. Defense isn't very good right now, and I do believe they lost a couple of offensive linemen prior to the season. But right here, Jordan Reid says take the best wide receiver. That's Ted McMillan, the best true single wide receiver, not named Travis Hunter, in the 2025 class. Michael Williams going to Arizona. They have no pass rush, so they need a guy. He's been in and out of the lineup this year, but here this past weekend versus Texas, his impact was felt. You saw big number 13 doing his thing out there, as well as his teammate Walker, which we'll talk about later. The Colts, who got a big win versus Miami, picking Malachi Starks, the safety out of Georgia. They need a lot in Indianapolis. I really believe they need an easy button at tight end. Anthony Richardson, I know a lot of people are looking at his performance, didn't do a lot from a passing perspective. I watched the game, and I think there's some positives to take away, especially in the second half, but everything can't be down the field. They need somebody at tight end that can win early, that's dynamic, that can make plays. Brock Bowers, this is why I mocked Brock Bowers and Jatavian Sanders last year to the Indianapolis Colts, and I'm going to do the same thing here in 25. I love Malachi Starks, but give Anthony Richardson an easy button, and you see team needs tight end. I'm going tight end. Give me Colston Loveland. My favorite personal kind of rising tight end, Harold Fannin Jr. Big time riser. Love Harold Fannin Jr. Athletic, nasty player. Check him out. My Dallas Cowboys, Ashton Jeanty, because that's what we need, to waste a pick on a great running back when the roster needs a lot. Dallas needs a running back. They need defensive tackle. They need a wide receiver opposite CeeDee Lamb. They need linebackers. They need a lot in Dallas. I love Ashton Jeanty. I would not spend the 15th overall pick on him for this team. Maybe another team, your team, but not this one. I think there are a lot of other things Dallas probably should prioritize opposed to a running back. This team is not win now, so what are you drafting them for? To just have them run for a lot of yards and your team isn't ready to go? Love Ashton Jeanty. Would be great from a fantasy football perspective, but real NFL fit. Bigger needs than the running back position, especially when of all the positions in 2025, the RB class is deep. I would just wait on running back. Denver Broncos go wide receiver Luther Burden to help out Bo Nix. All right. Bo Nix making progress every single week. We saw him getting it clicking with Troy Franklin this week, 5 for 50. Denver adds another wide receiver in Reid's mock. Jalen Walker, just like Philly needs any more defensive linemen, especially from Georgia. Jalen Carter got busy, and Nolan Smith with a sack. I believe Nakobe Dean as well. Dean, Carter, and Smith, all Georgia boys, sacks for Philadelphia this past weekend. They go and opt for another edge rusher, Jalen Walker, who was all over the place versus Texas. You know, you look at Philly and Jordan Mailata down at left tackle. They lost Jason Kelce at center, but Cam Jurgens looks really good. Can they opt for another offensive lineman? Maybe they take a stab at upgrading their third wide receiver spot here in a deep class. But Philly taking Jalen Walker at 17. The rich get richer, especially along that defensive front. The Bears are taking the offensive tackle guard out of Arizona. Watch this game this weekend because Colorado played against Arizona, and I don't recall the offensive lineman here, Jonah Salavina, but I also wasn't really paying attention to the offensive front. So Chicago protecting Caleb Williams. San Francisco 49ers, Shamar Stewart, edge rusher out of A&M. Don't know a lot about the kid, but 6'6", 290 pounds. Reid is saying he hasn't racked up a lot of sacks, but the production potential is there with a player of his frame and athleticism. The Seahawks, they protect Geno Smith. They trade right here. They protect Geno Smith. Take Cameron Williams, offensive tackle out of Texas. Deion Walker, the big D tackle out of Kentucky. Shout out to one of my co-hosts here of Destination Chill, Scott Connor, big Kentucky fan. He's been talking about this big DT all season long. Jim Harbaugh, right? Defense, run the ball, establish it. 6'6", 345, and from all reports is athletic as all outdoors. If you're that damn big playing in the SEC and you're putting up those type of numbers, you're probably going to get drafted in the first round. So Chargers load up on the defensive line. Commanders, you know their defense needs help. Offense in a good spot with Jaden Daniels. You don't have to spend any high pick on any kind of receiver. You got Terry McLaurin in place. Tight ends are solid. Running back room is good. They go Benjamin Morrison, cornerback out of Notre Dame. The Bills take the other Michigan DT, Kenneth Grant. Buffalo up front, I believe they had some injuries. They locked up Ed Oliver. I know Greg Rousseau up there as well, but Buffalo opting to shore up the interior defensive line. Takario Davis, the big cornerback from Arizona, did get to watch him matched up against LaJohntay Wester as well as Travis Hunter for the little bit that he was out there, and they just kept talking about his size. Apparently, this is a very big corner, physical corner. I did see him matched up on Hunter when he was in there. Got a PI called against him in the end zone, but apparently the kid is really good. Playing opposite Jair Alexander, who's playing really good football this year as well. Green Bay opting for defense. The Steelers and their new quarterback, Russell Wilson, who cooked the New York Jets on Sunday Night Football, getting Isaiah Bond. And this actually, it's a good fit, but Roman Wilson could do some similar things as Bond, not nearly as explosive. So we'll see how Roman Wilson progresses, but that could be your short underneath target earner for Russell Wilson and the Raiders if they work out a long-term marriage. Look good to start the season, look good. Atlanta Falcons, or at least to start Russ's season, it looked good. The Atlanta Falcons take Landon Jackson, an edge out of Arkansas. Ravens opt for offensive tackle. I believe they took an O-tackle in round 1 last year as well. This is one out of Minnesota. Aratone Ursi, excuse me if I butchered the name. We'll learn them as we go on. I have not studied the Minnesota tackle, not going to lie to y'all. But Baltimore opting for offensive line help. There you go. They got a rookie from last year's class. They get another O-tackle that they can plug and play. Lamar Jackson en route to his third MVP. Let's keep it rolling. Tampa Bay Buccaneers take Colston Loveland. This is a player that I want to go to the Colts. Anthony Richardson. Come on, baby. Get him some easy button help. Baker Mayfield having the best damn year of his career. Just adds more firepower to a very good offense. You know, Mike Evans a little long in the tooth. Chris Godwin's still great, having a phenomenal year. But adding a dynamic tight end, unlike Cade Otton, who is being used sparingly this season, just gives more firepower to what right now is a very explosive Tampa Bay offense. Detroit Lions go Jack Sawyer, the edge out of Ohio State, knowing everything that happened with Hutch. Got to replace the pass rush or at least try to add to it for when Hutch is back. Who knows when that will be, but I'm sure when he's back, he's playing like crazy like always, but they got to find some help for Hutch in the meantime. Texans go D-tackle Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss. And you know it ain't a mock draft without the Kansas City Chiefs taking a running back or a receiver. And this year they take Emeka Egbuka, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. You know, Kansas City continues to try to surround Mahomes with as many pieces and weapons as he possibly can get. Hollywood Brown, hurt. Isaiah Pacheco, hurt. Rashee Rice, done for the season. Juju Smith-Schuster, hurt. Travis Kelce, clearly not the same player that he once was. Here we are again with Kansas City and trying to find help that can just get to the season for Mahomes. Egbuka makes a lot of sense. Now, it's funny because I believe he and Rice are like the same player. They're like power slots. Egbuka reminds me of Smith-Schuster coming out of USC. Not Juju today, but Juju coming out of USC. Juju that played next to Antonio Brown. Juju that put up a damn near 1,500-yard season when both he and AB were top 5 wide receivers in fantasy football. Just a wild time that we were in some years ago. But Egbuka reminds me of a power slot. So are they prepping and gearing up for a Rashee Rice suspension? And Rashee Rice might not be all the way back. Worthy, like they're different, right? Worthy is a completely different archetype of receiver than Egbuka, Rice, or Juju. So this just seems like sort of the Rashee Rice, Juju Smith-Schuster power slot replacement for the Kansas City Chiefs. And if this were to go down, this would be a good spot. Mecca's nice, and this would be a dope spot for Egbuka and the Kansas City Chiefs. And at 32, the Minnesota Vikings take defensive tackle Derek Harmon out of Oregon. So there goes the mock. Link to this is in the description of this video. Make sure you check out all the dope work from Jordan Reid. A couple of players that were not mentioned in this mock that I just want to talk through quickly. No Quinn Ewers. No Quinn Ewers in this mock. Still a lot of college football left. But there's something. He's come back, and in both games, he's looked fine. He's looked okay. But to sit here and be like, that looks the part of a first-round quarterback, as bad as A-Rich is throwing the football today in the NFL, a lot of people say this is exactly who he was at Florida. At least there was something there that wowed you. There was some superpower. It was athleticism, ability to move in the open field that makes somebody, you and me, all intrigued in an NFL team say, we'll take him with a top 5 pick. I'm looking at Quinn, and I'm just thinking, what does he do special? And I do believe that prior to that injury, he was just doing enough to stay in the range to be considered as a top pick, to get that requisite draft capital. And despite what you or I think about that in this game of fantasy football that we play, draft capital is going to yield some opportunity for some amount of time, which makes that player viable. But when we sit back today and just look through 8 weeks of college football information, watch the game, the flow, it's hard for me to say that Jalen Milroe doesn't need to come back. I mean, you can't take that unfinished of a quarterback prospect. You can't take that at the top of the draft, right? If A-Rich is struggling to where he is, and he was supposed to be the biggest size freak monster at the position that we've ever seen, if that doesn't work from an inefficient collegiate passer, you can't take Milroe. You can't take Milroe, at least now, not in this current form. Maybe he evolves into something else next season, but he feels like another year under Kalen DeBoer would do him a lot of good. Michael Penix was in the same boat, and it got him drafted number 8, number 9 overall in 2024. We talked a little bit about Carson Beck. He's not pushing the ball downfield unless it's open. And to be fair to Beck, he has had some drops by his wideouts. His wide receiving cast has not helped him out this season, but you do have a great defense, and you have an incredible running game, and you are the guy that was viewed as the top dog. So I'm not going to make a ton of excuses for Carson Beck when Shador's running around for his life, when Cam Ward's transferred 3 times, has to learn a new system. You're there. You've been there, and I just do not see a first-round caliber quarterback with Carson Beck right now, but all that stuff can change. And then you get to a player who I do think is playing like maybe the best pro potential quarterback in the country, but he doesn't even have to come out, and that's LSU's Garrett Nussmeier. He's been phenomenal. His pressure to sack rate in the SEC against this top competition leads the country. You don't hit him. He does not take sacks. He gets the ball out of his hands quickly. He's fearless, gunslinger. He's mobile in the pocket. This is a guy I told y'all coming into the season he would be my dark horse QB1 this season. And right now, if there were true confidence that Nussmeier was going to declare, I think there'd be a good, strong case for him to be the QB1 off of the board. Thing is, he doesn't have to do anything. I mean, he's a sophomore. He's got 2 more years left. NIL money could be dope. Continue to hone his game. Be nice to see Nuss declare, but I don't quite think he will. I appreciate y'all tapping in for another show over here on the channel. If you stuck around to the end of the video and you found the information actionable and or entertaining, hit that thumbs up button, like the content, subscribe to the channel. Really helps me out, helps me grow, reach more people, to do more things, and just grow the community, man. It's a dope place talking rookies over here at DD Fantasy Football. Tap into all the dope content that we have. Stay locked in. Mock Draft Mondays every single week. Y'all enjoy. I'm out. Peace.